everyone, and welcome to this episode of Gen Live entitled How Bioprocessing Breakthroughs Are Shaping the Future of Medicine. I'm Juliana Lemire, Deputy Editor-in-Chief at Gen, and I'll be your host today. I want to start by thanking our sponsors for this episode. Panome Biome provides biomarker and mechanism discovery through next-generation metabolomics, proteomics, transcriptomics, and integrated multiomics analysis. Powered by a proprietary bioinformatics pipeline, they unlock complex biological insights, driving advancements in disease research, personalized medicine, and bioprocessing systems. Panome Bio, a leader in the biotech industry, empowers researchers and clinicians to explore the molecular intricacies of life. And also our second sponsor, Nirin Technologies, is proud to sponsor this Gen Live event and support the advancement of bioprocessing analytics. They are transforming bioprocess analytics with their high-precision tunable laser spectroscopy platform. The Atlas system delivers process insights for excipients, surfactants, high-concentration proteins, and monoclonal antibodies simultaneously, reducing development costs, accelerating time to market, and advancing manufacturing. Discover how Atlas transformed bioprocess analytics at Nirin.tech. So, bioprocessing has long been the backbone of drug development. Today, as the field evolves, advances in processes, equipment, and technology are improving efficiency and safety, helping organizations bring novel therapies and modalities to life. From streamlining cell and gene therapy production to integrating AI for smarter manufacturing, the bioprocessing landscape is rapidly transforming, with the goal to deliver therapies quickly, affordably, and at scale. On this episode of Gen Live, we will explore the current state of bioprocessing and how the field is tackling its biggest challenges. To do this, we're thrilled to be joined by two experts, Dr. Elena Erroba and Dr. Sundar Ramanan. And I will mention Dr. Irene Rombel could not end up joining us today. But before we introduce our guests, it's my pleasure to introduce my co-host for the day, John Sterling, the editor-in-chief at Gen. John has been covering bioprocessing at Gen for over 40 years, so I'm thrilled that he agreed to join us today. Welcome to Gen Live, John.
Well, thank you very much, Juliana. And the only thing I could say I'm expert at is covering this field for 40 years and watching it and develop at all of its different stages. And I think it's a very timely, I'm going to make this very quick because we want to get to the other folks, a very timely time to do this because there was a story last week that they've actually slowed the treatment of Parkinson's disease. There have been a couple of gene therapy breakthroughs, actually people being treated. I think for most of the time I've watched biotech, the emphasis has been on R&D. And all I'm going to say is if bioprocessing, it's appreciated within the industry. I don't know how much the outside world. If you can't make these products economically and efficiently, you can't do anything with them. So I'm delighted to have everybody here today.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much. And now I want to introduce our visiting guests. So Elena Erroba is the Chief Commercial Officer at 3P Biovian and has been at the company for about 15 years, or was with the company also before it merged, the 3P Biopharmaceuticals company. She specializes in the development and manufacturing of recombinant proteins and advanced therapies, including viral vectors and DNA plasmids. And in addition to her executive role, Elena serves as an adjunct professor in the Science and Business program at the University of Nevada, where she shares her expertise at the intersection of science and business. Thanks so much for joining us today, Elena. We're thrilled to have you on.
Thank you, Juliana, for the invitation. And thank you, Jen, for allowing 3P Biovian to be here today. Thank you so much.
And, I really appreciate all of your bio, of course, but the last part in a little bit specially because I also keep one kind of finger in the classroom. And I also teach a class still at the university. So we can talk about students at some point later on.
Don't talk about that.
And Dr. Sundar Ramanan is the Chief Quality Officer at Enzene, where he has been since early last year. Sundar has over 25 years of experience across biopharmaceutical drug development to commercialization life cycle with strong emphasis on quality and regulatory compliance. His career spans both product development, global companies such as Amgen, Baxter and Biocon, and CDMO Just Evotec Biologics. And he's also an accomplished speaker and author. And his most recent publication is a book titled Orphan Drug Development for Rare Disease. It's such a pleasure to have you here today, Sundar. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Juliana. Looking forward to the conversation.
And before we jump in, I want to remind our audience that we would like to answer your questions too. So please put any questions that you have for Elena and Sundar and John or myself into the attendees section of the platform, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. So I want to start with everyone kind of taking their own 30,000-foot view of the field. So everybody here has been in bioprocessing for over a decade. So compared to 10 or even 20 years ago, where would you say bioprocessing is today? And Elena, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Well, I will start by saying that bioprocessing has evolved from being large experimental and small scale to becoming one essential piece of today's biotech industry. 20 years ago, we were still exploring the potential of proteins and early biologics. And today, we are engineering biologics and cell and gene therapies with a real impact on patients' lives. The field is no longer about proving feasibility, but much more about delivering consistently at scale with quality and also with efficient cost. In 3P Biovian, we bring together more than 30 years of this combined expertise. You know that we've recently combined former 3P Biopharmaceuticals and former Biovian. And that's why during all this journey, we've supported our clients from early stages, partnering with them to develop and advance their processes phase by phase. So, well, I think we've seen the growth and the evolution of the market together with our customers. This is a proof of the growth of the industry as we see it today.
Okay, great. Sundar, how about yourself?
So if you were to look at a couple of decades back, right, there were a lot of unknowns with regards to biologics. We didn't know the structure function relationships was still evolving 20 years back. I would say the science elements of it has been relatively figured out in the past couple of decades. And now we are applying technology and the computing power and combining that right now along with the biotechnology, right? So that's at the 30,000 feet level.
Okay, great. We'll get into lower feet as we go along. Yeah. John, how about yourself? I mean, you a little bit answered this at the beginning, but please.
Continue. Yes.
Yes.
So covering this beginning in '84, which was really interesting, Genentech went public only 4 years before. And the big, that was the main recombinant human insulin and growth hormone were the ones that people were focusing on. These were basic, either fermenters or bioreactors, very, very basic. And over the years, I've watched different systems put on, different sensors put on. They've gotten increasingly sophisticated to measure oxygen, CO2, the different kind of nutrients that were in there. And those instruments and systems continue to get more and more and more exquisite to the point where now AI, digital, automation, robotics, they're taking over a lot of those processes. The two biggest changes have been in the first 25 years was how do you make enough protein in either a bioreactor from microorganisms or mammalian cells. That was the big thing to get the product that you want out of these cell line systems. That was done, I'd say maybe the last 15, 20 years. Then the issue was, well, how do you purify all of this downstream? And the technology there has advanced so rapidly that now the big problem is the scientists are producing so much very expensive material, and the downstream end is how do you purify it and how do you make sure you're purifying it correctly and you don't get things backed up and it doesn't become the roadblock in the process of getting the product to the market. Along with the market, the other term you hear more and more today for companies involved in either developing the pharma drugs themselves or the bioprocessing companies was getting the product to market. Now you're hearing a really interesting twist. And I think it's because so many products, including gene therapy and what I was talking about, Huntington's, the other thing they say is, and getting the products to patients as fast as possible. That's a real critical difference that you never saw talks or releases. So I think the companies are very confident in themselves, what they're doing. The technologies are getting better. And yeah, it's in some ways, I tell friends, 5 or 10 years, you're going to be looking at what I call Star Trek science and medicine. What we're going to see coming down the line, not only in terms of how these products are manufactured and purified and sent to the patients, but the kind of products we're going to see. So it's a whole new world.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were just at Bioprocessing International, just what was that, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And everything that everybody has mentioned and more, I will say, was, in just full momentum. Like automation was obviously a huge topic. How AI is integrating into bioprocessing, of course. One thing that hasn't been mentioned, but I went to several sessions on, was CRISPR and genome editing and how that's transforming cell and gene therapy, and also omics and how omics is now being used in bioprocessing. So, I mean, I love going to BPI because we cover all of these things at Gen, and I think it's one meeting where these all play such an important role. And so I'm sure we'll get into all of that a little bit more. I'm newer to bioprocessing, so I can't compare it to 10 years ago, but I've been in it for several years now, and that is one thing I love about the field. Okay, terrific. So I guess let's talk about, before we talk about how all these things are helping bioprocessing move forward and gain momentum and make drugs for patients, let's talk about the big challenges. So we already heard, Elena, you said scale and cost, which are two of the big ones. So are there, I mean, so those are two big ones. What are some other challenges in bioprocessing right now? And I'll open this up to anybody who wants to jump in.
Well, I can start maybe if you want.
Sure.
Timelines, you said very well. Also costs, for sure. Complexity, scalability, that remains at the center. Also regulatory expectations, new policies towards US market, as you know well, and the need for specialized expertise. I think that all adds layers of challenge. For advanced therapies, I think we can talk even a little bit more. Reproducibility, scalability, again, cost of goods, that's absolutely key factor for success. Consistency, those are all still difficult to manage, and I think that, well, CDMOs were key to help our customers, biotech companies, give access to all those hopes and therapies to patients, but this is really difficult, I have to say. Okay, flexibility and innovation must be in the middle of all this, but there are important barriers we are facing now.
Right. Sundar, how about yourself?
So I'll add a couple more.
Sure.
The number one, I would say it's been chronic, is supply chain resilience, right? And the impact of raw materials and availability of raw materials to produce these complex products. So that's one thing, and that's continued to stay. So if it's one component or the other component, but the industry has been consistently facing supply chain issues, right? The second and more evolving challenge is the data security. So it's more and more as we digitize and we start using artificial intelligence in decision making, it becomes extremely critical to have the data secured, and how you build your facility and the data network that is separate from internet and protect that so that there's no external threat coming in. That is pretty key. So these are the two I would say that are one that has been stayed throughout the couple decades. It's just morphing in one shape or another. The second and more critical evolving threat is or a challenge is the data security.
Fully agree.
Yeah. John, do you want to add? Because I have a question about the supply chain, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I can see two. With these new technologies, these digital technologies and AI and everything happening so quickly, I often wonder how the regulatory system is going to adapt to this. And I'll tell you that for two reasons. They have the process analytical technologies. Um, Again, with all the cutbacks in a lot of the bureaus, the government bureaus that handle drugs, research, bioprocessing operations. I don't know how much that's going to be affected, but affected. But with all of these new technologies coming in, how are these groups going to keep up with this? Allied to that, we were at a meeting up in Boston, where somebody said that the workforce in bioprocessing is very quickly aging. A number of workers are like approaching 65 or over. You don't hear much about this. And in the meanwhile, a whole new generation of young scientists need to be brought in. The question is, how quickly can they be brought in? Fortunately for them, they've literally grown up in the AI and digital age. Uh, I remember the first time, oh God, it was in the early 2000s, when they used to design bioreactors. It was like designing a house. Um, the scientist would come, he'd have his little protractor and everything, design anything. The first time, I think it was Millipore, it was the first time I ever saw it. The gentleman was designing a bioreactor on a high-tech system, a totally IT developed system. So that goes back, but it's got an even more increasing in sophistication. So some of the things that I wrote down when talking to these people, we've really got to build the talent pipeline, and that can come through academic industry partnerships, a lot of AI, digital, and robotics training. I forget what that technology is. Technology doubles every 6 months. I'd say it's probably doing, and this is over the top 6 days, the way these things are changing, and upskilling the current workforce. So those are some issues that I think are going to play a major role in how quick this industry develops.
And, it's interesting about the workforce because I was down in North Carolina in the Raleigh-Durham area last week for the Fujifilm CDMO opening. And there are programs down there, and I didn't know about this, that train people to go into biomanufacturing, just specifically. And I think, probably because that area has so much of it. I mean, I guess I'm assuming stay in that area to support the manufacturing going on in there, but I'm sure maybe go elsewhere as well. So there are specific programs that are trying to, train people specifically.
Yeah.
We'll have this. Sorry.
Go, Elena. Thank
you. I was just going to say, that our company is based in Spain and Finland. Okay. And in the case of Spain, I mean, there is not that much big industry, where we can get talent from. So this is why in our region, we activated this kind of initiatives. We're very close to the University of Navarre, which is quite a reference university in the country. And we have very good academic basic students and professionals with no experience. That's why we've activated what we call 3P Academy. It's a specific program in which after a student gets out from the University of Navarre or wherever in the world, we train them specifically as per the biomanufacturing skills that any biologic CDMO would require. And then those professionals, they get a certificate and they can start working in 3P Bioven or in any CDMO in the world, because we've detected that there is a lack of basic know-how coming from academia, either university degree or even basic labor degree, so we need to do it ourselves. It's a little bit out of the regular way of having a professional coming in, but it's the only way to have the know-how coming in to the company.
Well, and actually, we just had an audience member. Oh, sorry, Sundar, and then I'll let you jump in. But they just chimed in that a similar program has existed in Montgomery County, Maryland, for some time. So actually, it's John. I think we should do an article on this. I mean, I think that these programs probably do exist all over, but maybe kind of quietly. You know?
Well, actually, there are quite a few. They're usually like certificates or not a bachelor's degree, just below that. They're growing all up around the country. I mean, the government has actually been behind a lot of this. And we do this in our weekly news. Whenever one of these pops up, I talk about a training session. Okay,
Yeah.
it's because how to train these people. The other interesting aspect is, somebody told this to me, what I've noticed over the last 20 years is the footprints of all this instrumentation that used to take up rooms are now bigger than the old TV boxes or something like this. And they're intuitively operated. You don't need a PhD to operate them. So that brings up the question, well, I think it's great, and I spoke to somebody last month about this, that the students basically come in with science of knowledge, what they're doing. And the other thing, I think, where there's going to be room for people, somebody's going to have to troubleshoot these things. If they break down, monitor them, trouble them. Yeah, the systems get monitored, but when something breaks down, you are going to need, and everybody doesn't want to say this, you're going to need humans to look at these things and fix them. And I think that's where there'll be opportunities for a lot of these people.
Absolutely.
Sundar, I think you were going to say something about the workforce.
Yeah. So, see, the demand, biologic medicines are becoming a mainstay, right? I mean, it used to be small molecules, but biologic medicines, with the quantity of product that we are able to produce, access is now mainstay. Now, with that, we need a large number of, John, to your point, large number of workforce, and given people inherently are variable, and biologic medicines are highly sensitive to manufacturing and human interactions, it's about training in precision, right? So what we have done is something called a finishing school. We go and recruit people from the best and the brightest of universities with master's degree in biochemistry, microbiology, but they are not yet ready for the workforce. And so what we do is we give them hands-on specific training to inculcate precision in either quality control labs or in R&D labs, as well as in manufacturing. All of these requires mindful presence. The biggest issue facing any bioprocessing facility is contamination, and one of the source of contamination are humans, and that is behavior based training that you need to give, which is pretty difficult to do. So emphasizing and training plays an extremely important role in producing consistent production over long periods of time. So it's critical as part of reliable supply to patients.
Indeed.
Well, and even with the quality control, I mean, even if there are automated machines that are doing, checking some of the tubes and taking pictures and things like that, there's also on the other side a human that's, not necessarily checking everyone, but checking along with the machines.
Sure.
I think the thing about the automation, though, is that it can just move so much faster than humans can, especially in the quality control part. But
yes. So again, because the demand has grown, and
right,
access to these medicines have grown, computers and automated robotics certainly help in scaling up, but you still have a human interface from receiving the samples and giving it to the machines, and there's often some kind of manipulation involved in between the two with the human. Right. So there are companies that are coming up that are trying to completely eliminate, especially in the cell therapy space, that are trying to completely automate the whole manufacturing process flow. Right. Mm-hmm. And we have done practically, we have connected the entire biologic manufacturing process from start all the way close to drug substance in a fully connected continuous processing. So our vision is to have a lights out manufacturing. Right. So as opposed to human intervention, but you will need humans in the areas of mechanical engineering, robotics, automation. So that are going to be augmenting and supporting the facilities, and that requires a different kind of skilled workforce and different kind of training that you would have provided about a couple of decades back.
Yeah, to your point, Sundar, we recently ran an article in Gen where one company at where the cell culture and the bioreactors are in these little stations, they send robots over, and the robots do the measuring, pick it up, move it to the next one, and so yeah, obviously they're trying to remove humans as much as they can, but I do think at the end of the run and all, you're going to need some eyes on this because
Absolutely.
it just goes so yeah.
I think that in any case, I think what we will all agree is that automation pushes innovation somehow, because in automation can focus on this kind of job while it frees the scientist time to be much more creative, to focus on the intellectual aspect of what we do, rather than having those highly skilled professionals doing repetitive activities that whose added value could be not as much as what they could provide by themselves with their brains. So I think this is a very important added value that we have now with automation.
That's a
We
great
are not just
point.
replacing, it's not replacing expertise, but
Yeah,
just enabling for human in the loop decision making somehow.
absolutely. Good point, Elena.
Right. And also just back to that Fujifilm CDMO last week, it's highly automated. They're still increasing hundreds of jobs. Like I think it was, I don't want to misquote, but in the hundreds of new jobs. So, there's still a lot of people there. So the bottom line. I want to talk about supply chain actually, but before we do, we have an audience question, and regulation did come up earlier. And I'm just wondering if anybody has a sense of how is the FDA coping or maybe keeping up with the approval process? Does anybody have a sense if how FDA is doing right now?
I can go if that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So a couple days back on September 24th, I think maybe 5 days back, the FDA issued a new guidance on computerized systems assurance, right? So the term that has been used is computerized systems validation for quite some time. And then now you're moving into the computerized systems assurance. So the and continuous and connected processes, there's ICH Q13, where the agency has been proactive actually in terms of providing a framework. I can also share, this is my data is from almost more than 2 decades back, where without any computers, we presented a mathematical model to support lot release in a biologic manufacturing facility. This is 2 decades back, and the agency was completely open even 2 decades back. So they have been keeping up with the evolving technology, and as we move more and more into automation, right? I think regulations are keeping up, unlike the past.
Well, that's great. That's good news. And what about one of the biggest challenges that you said, Sundar, was supply chain issues. And you said this is like a long-standing issue going on. So what are some new ways do you think that people are trying to get around that challenge or get over it?
See, the answer to that is a classical diversification, right? And we are able to diversify. So in a couple of decades back, let's take bioreactor, and you're either reliant on soy peptone, that is 2 decades back. We have moved away from anything now into a chemically defined media, and we understand how the cells interact with the media in a much more comprehensive way today. So we know exactly which component is affecting the cell growth, the productivity, the product quality attributes. We have a lot of knowledge today. And with that knowledge, what we're able to do is to diversify the source of all of these components that affects the production. So diversification is a pretty strong tool in terms of, if there's a supply disruption in one of the suppliers, we are able to move to a different one in a much more, governed, regulated manner, right? So you couldn't simply switch a media 2 decades back without having an impact on the product. Now we can switch a single component of a media quite comfortably because we have understanding of the process product relationship.
Well, one thing that a number of CDMOs told us up at the meeting was that as a result of the COVID pandemic, a lot of CDMOs are now insourcing their projects, whereas they send them out, they're bringing them inside to have better and closer control and monitor resources so that if, and something is going to come somewhere down the line again, now they want to have a closer control and they're insourcing more and more. Just learned that 2 weeks ago.
Okay, great. Well, that's great. I want to move a little bit. It's 2025, so we are mandated to discuss AI. There's no panel discussion can get around not talking about AI, and we should, because it's making such a big impact in bioprocessing. So how do you, Sundar and Elena, how do you see AI really working in bioprocessing in different ways?
Well, I would say that, do you hear me well? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, because I'm having some difficulties with the connection. Here I am. So I would say that AI is going to accelerate decision making. It's a booster of decision making. Also, is able to predict deviations, optimize processes real time. There are so many advantages that we can incorporate in our operations and day to day in the CDMO. We talked a little bit about the quality control impact some minutes ago, okay? And but not only quality control and analytical information management, but also purely manufacturing process dependent. And as I was saying, I don't think this is replacing expertise. I think AI automation is more to enable human in the loop decision making and always combining digital intelligence with scientific expertise. But it's worth highlighting the concern or the importance to use it in a safe and controlled way. We are in the CDMO business. Confidentiality, data management is absolutely critical. What we do is impacting so much society, patients, but also the business, the industry, So we need to pay attention to all this, okay? So it's worth exploring safe applications and safe ways of managing this AI. And in 3P, in our company, 3P Biovian, we use it in a safe way for sure. AI plays a key role, for example, in our company in talent management. We were talking about talent just recently now, so especially useful in that. And our model was recently recognized even with a prize, an international prize, thanks to its potential to support and guide the team's learning process. So in that sense, it's so efficient, so straight to the point, and so clever that for us it's been a pleasure to introduce it. And well, I would like to highlight the importance of being cautious and manage the data safely and being really, really careful about confidentiality and use of the information. I think we are living weird times and we need to be especially prudent on that.
I'll augment what Elena is saying, specifically with regards to the application of artificial intelligence in the space of, let's say, bioprocessing. I would say a particular application is parametric lot release, right? So traditionally, you manufacture the product, you send it to the QC lab, test the product, and then the QA provides oversight, and then the lot gets dispositioned. Now, with incorporating sensors into manufacturing, can you do decision-making live? That's one component. The second component is there's the input process parameters and the product quality attributes. By making a relationship or mathematical models between the process quality attributes and the input process parameters, you can actually start thinking about releasing a lot using input process parameters. So if you have run the process under well-controlled conditions and you have a lot of data, right, even data from every single component of the biomanufacturing, then can you make decisions even without testing because you've established the relationship between the two? So that's the zone that we are exploiting at this point in time in the application of AI, so that we can move closer to lot release, much faster cycle times. So that's the real value of applying augmented intelligence, what we call as artificial intelligence. Yeah.
Sundar, I want to thank you for that, because my big issue, and I tell Juliana this all the time, we hear about AI and digital. What does this stuff actually do? What does it do? And then we both said it's probably confidentiality agreements. I mean, or maybe you guys have a very secret process that really works well. You're not going to give it out for free. You're the first person I've seen who actually explained how you use it. And I want to thank you very much for that. And hopefully we can get this out of more people, because that's what I really want. Everybody throws those terms around. Well, what does it do? What does it actually do? How does it apply? And you provide that. So thank you very much.
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly. Because
Yeah.
it's the mayonnaise that's applied to everything these days, right? But we need to double click beyond the jargon and understand, what does it really mean to patients? What does it really mean to compliance? What does it really mean to productivity or cost, right? And that needs to be very specific.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I feel like having a very concrete example like the one that you just gave is super helpful to understand how it's being used in the process. And I guess at the bottom line of what you were saying is that it would create get the drugs out faster, right? I mean, just you'd be able to make these processes happen more quickly. Is that correct?
That is exactly it, right? So see, if you were to look at the production, post-production, lot disposition cycle times, right? Usually it goes in the matter of several weeks. Now the question is, how do we cut those times so that the drugs are available to patients while ensuring compliance? Right? It's always about so compliance is always time consuming, and it's seen as a pain. Now, how do you take that and incorporate that into your process so that you always maintain control and compliance while enabling efficiency? So I would say AI provides both effectiveness and efficiency together, right? It's not either or, but and.
Both. And I would add that as it is both, it also means saving costs, and saving costs equals better access of the treatment to the patients, because at the end of the day, it's all about efficacy of the product for sure, but also cost of goods, and AI, I'm sure, is going to drive cost effectiveness.
Now that's a very good point. And Juliana and I heard about that this last couple of weeks, that AI is really going to help in cutting costs, reducing errors. What else can people do? You were mentioning raw materials. What are 2 or 3 other factors? For instance, it's like for all these new gene therapies, it's $2 or $3 million for one treatment. That's very small, minuscule people going to get that. So for that to be given to a broader population, what do you think are some other things need to be done to get the cost of these new drugs down?
Yeah. If we had the answer, maybe Sundar has, but if we had the answer, I don't know, we would be millionaires,
Maybe somebody has it and they're not
maybe
saying.
Sundar has.
Huh? Yeah.
So what we have done, I would say, is so if you were to look at where does the cost come from, right? Again, we need to double click on that. Traditionally, for a biologic manufacturing facility, the fixed capital cost, right, contributes to a very large portion of the cost that needs to be amortized over 10, 15 years. So what we have done is, if you were to look at biomanufacturing 20 years back, it's all stainless steel, which requires miles and miles of piping, which requires tremendous amount of steam and chemicals to keep it clean, barely to keep it clean, right? Energy. So energy cost, fixed cost. What we've done is we have asked the question, how can we move the complexity of biomanufacturing into the cells? So we have made the cells more productive. So today the cells produce a lot more, the specific productivity, at least 10 to 50 times more than 20 years back. So each cell produces a lot more than before, number one. What that allows us to do is to shrink the footprint of the biologic manufacturing facility dramatically, right? Second component is between one step and step two and step three, there is always holding tanks. We have removed them. So what we've done is fully connected, continuous manufacturing,
Yes.
which eliminates my capital requirement. Now, traditionally, you're moving the manufacturing to outside the US, right? Largely for a variety of cost concerns. Now we are able to, using this technology, we actually brought this technology from India to the US. And we're building we've just inaugurated the facility a couple of weeks back, where we are able to be cost competitive in the US with much lower carbon footprint, and more energy efficient, right? So the costs can be brought down by eliminating the need for large fixed capital, and by operating in a more automated manner.
Right. So that's part of Bioprocess 4.0. And everybody's been singing the praises of continuous processing. Are there any downsides to going that way?
So the industry is, so eventually everyone's going to move here, right? You have no choice but to move here for a couple of reasons. One, lower cost. Number two, we have a lot more knowledge about structure function relationship and process product relationship, and that knowledge is being used to maintain product quality through automation. So this is a natural step to go for the entire industry, right? So right now it seems like it's early stage adoption, but this is going to be the mainstay in the near future for the entire industry.
Okay, good.
But also, I'll just add too, John, some of those exorbitant price tags are gene therapies. And when we're talking about those, we're talking about a very small, a much smaller group of patients. And so at least my understanding is, like one way to bring costs down is just make more and scale up, right? And so if you're making, and remember the story of, baby KJ, and they made literally one treatment for one baby. And, so if we're talking, and then I spoke with the biomanufacturers of that was just 2 Gen Live shows ago, Aldevron, IDT, and they were saying, this is a new paradigm. If you have to make one therapy and then clean all the lines and then do everything, I mean, that's just like not kind of how biomanufacturing is, set up at the moment. Please, Sundar and Elena, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were saying that if we're making N of one or N of few therapies, that you really do need to rethink some of how how the biomanufacturing process would have to work, because they're used to, and ideally would make more to bring costs down. Is that right?
Elena, do you want to go first and then I can add? Yeah.
It's difficult for me, but what I can say is that what we're seeing is a fact. Okay, the advanced therapies per se, the way they are built and designed now, this is not sustainable at all. So even maybe alternative manufacturing ways to target genetical diseases should be taken into account. Now with this AAV world being such a question mark, there are some important players in the field who are looking for alternative ways to manufacture. LMPs or this kind of new technologies start to sound familiar to all of us. So let's wait, because maybe we see change, or an adaptation and evolution of the therapeutical approaches to target genetically related diseases. That would be my contribution.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I'm not talking about orphan diseases. I'm talking about something like sickle cell. Malaria has killed more people in the history of human than anybody. And those, what is it now, Julie? 100 people have now or more have been treated and the sickle cell genes removed, and the process is going on. to get that to that many people, that's going to take one hell of an alternative therapy to get that price down. So,
Yeah.
that's what really interests me.
I would, John, Elena, I would add to what you're saying. I would classify biologics and bio into three buckets of treatment paradigm. One is for the ultra rare disease population, and even the what we call as rare disease population. In the United States, it's defined as 200,000 patients, right? And in Europe, I believe there's a percent. But it's it still runs into hundreds of thousands of patients. And then the third one is millions of patients, right? So in these three buckets, the economy of scale has an impact on how, and then the health economics and drug pricing is connected to biomanufacturing, but it has other elements as well in terms of pricing. But from a bioprocessing perspective, we are moving more and more into, we used to call personalized. Now I would call it individualized, right?
Yeah.
So individualized therapy, and factories are going to be moving closer to treatment. They're going to be moving closer to hospitals.
Yes.
As opposed to you have one factory where all the raw material went in, and then you assembled people at traditional manufacturing, and now factories are moving, to hospitals, and so that there's a and this that's the zone that it's going into. So in terms of production technology, they needs to further miniaturize and automated, so that decision making can happen with few people closer to patient.
Yeah. And along with that, Sundar, we've done 2 or 3 articles this year. There's a huge movement in Africa to
Yes.
start a bioprocessing consortium and actually building the facilities, doing the research, and creating their own vaccines, because along that equatorial belt, that's where a lot of the malaria is all around the world. And so, in addition to what you were just saying, close to the hospital, building it in the countries where they don't have to wait months or whatever to do so. I think there's hope for those people, which is
Certainly, right?
yeah.
I've been traveling to many countries. Precisely, a lot of countries are interested in this model.
Yeah. South Africa is becoming really active lately. So let's see.
Okay. I want to just touch before we're coming to the top of the hour, which is ridiculous. It's gone so quickly. But I want to talk a little bit more about the data security, because Sundar, I think, both you and Elena brought this up in the beginning, and this seems like kind of a newer challenge that's facing the bioprocessing field. So what is the big concern, and what are the ways that the field is going to get around it?
Okay, I'll go first.
Sure. Yes. Yeah,
So when you think about data, right? Ultimately, you have two groups of companies. One is product companies, and one is service companies, what we call a CDMO, right? In the CDMO space, the data is owned by the person that's giving the contract. So as a CDMO provider, we have responsibility to, one, ensure whatever the client and in data is, first of all, governed properly. So we first map the entire data cycle from its origin to its archival, right? So that mapping process needs to happen. Step one. Step two, once that happens, how do you make sure that one company's information is not moving into other companies' information, and you are protecting that data and keeping it completely secure? That's number two. Number three, with a lot of cybersecurity threats, right? There is quite a bit of, if you just ask one of the AI chatbots, it'll tell you the number of companies being attacked for a variety of reasons, right? And how do you protect them from those threats so that you keep the production going and ensure supply of products. So these are the three major buckets of data governance, data lifecycle. Everything, at least from the CDMO space, is about securing and protecting the data, and then making sure that trust is assured through design.
I fully agree with you. I mean, we are both working in the CDMO space, so we know how important the information flow from customer to us as CDMO, how critical it is to maintain it in a safe, complete, and confidential way, for sure. But also the output, all the information that we generate from us as CDMO to our customer. This is so process dependent, molecule dependent, customer dependent, and is their proprietary, at the end of the day. So it's so crucial to guarantee that it is kept as confidential. We're having competitor companies having their processes in the same CDMO as we are, so it is absolutely critical from all angles.
So what do you do to it sounds like a big problem. I mean, how do you tackle this as a company?
So what we've done is we start with the IT architecture, and we build in secure elements in the design of how the data is separated. So I'll give you one simple example. Okay, you have something called a production network. So you need access to network within the production facility, and you also need access to network to access your email, Gmail, whatnot, right? How do you keep them separate so that anybody from outside can never go into your network that is managing your production, right? That's one way of, you need to secure data physically. How do you make sure that the data that's going in from production is not the same? I'm not an IT guy, but I can see physically, just like the traditional, how do you secure something that's valuable, right? You lock it, you keep it secure, you put a concrete around it. That's exactly what you do in a virtual world as well. But that's pretty critical, right? Encryption is important, so that it doesn't fall into the wrong hands, and even if it does, it's not readable. So all of these are components that we need to incorporate as part of bioprocessing.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So I want to kind of end our show together by looking toward the future. And so I'm going to ask you to put on your kind of take out your crystal balls or whatever it is and make some predictions. So I guess the first thing is, what do you think, what innovation do you think will have the most impact on the next, say, 5 to 10 years of bioprocessing? John, I'm going to start with you because I'll put you on the spot and we'll let Sundar and Elena think. Oh, you're muted, John.
Question. I didn't want to interrupt. Okay, so I really think it's all going to be driven by AI, to the point where, yeah, they're going to need some people working there, but the people I talk to just say that is going to become so sophisticated that it's not going to work on what it's been trained to do, but, and this is what scares people out there, they're going to start making decisions on their own. They're going to learn these systems and how to pay closer attention to what's being produced, and maybe not seeking a human a human counterpart to this. I don't know when that's going to be, but I read a lot about it. And close I come to it is ChatGPT, which actually does. I'll be honest with you, we never write Gen articles with ChatGPT, but it gives us some good questions and ideas that used to take me 2 hours to go through all the data to find out what should I ask. So that's what it's good. But I just think we've only touched the surface of this, and what it's going to be in 5 years, I have no idea, but I think it's going to be really, really, really different as they get more sophisticated, smarter, and basically thinking for themselves. And I'm not a science fiction guy, so If I think that, God knows what the science fiction people think.
Didn't you say at the beginning of the show it's going to be like Star Trek?
Yes. Yeah. We're going to a Star Trek world.
Oh my God.
All right, Elena, what do you think in like 5 to 10 years? What do you think will be like the biggest change in bioprocessing that we'll see?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball. Even when we think 5 years back in the days, we were in the middle of pandemia. You see how big difference the whole world has been since 2020 up to 2025. So who knows what 2030 will bring us. But as a CDMO, what I would say is that we should be considered in 5 years' time more than ever as by our clients, I mean, as an essential part of their project, and even as an essential part of them as a company. We are the critical partner. With no product, no company, no product, no clinical trial, so we are an absolutely key member in the clinical development program of our customers. And for me, the bioprocessing will need to become much more integrated, much more digital. AI as a core of the digital transformation of the company, and much more patient-centric, I would say. I hope to see standardized platforms being able to accommodate and to solve all the difficulties, not only in the advanced therapy space, but also in the recombinant proteins manufacturing space, where there are also important process challenges. I would love to see a shift towards flexible, modular facilities that can adapt to diverse modalities and products, because each day more modalities are appearing on board, and even CDMOs will have difficulties to incorporate the different modalities, and manage the risks associated to those. We need to prove an important cost and timeline reduction. As we said, it's all about money at the end of the day, unfortunately. I wish it wasn't, but it is. And I think that CDMOs will behave more than ever as true innovation hubs, okay, bridging biotech science with industrial delivery. I think we will not be perceived as just manufacturers, but also as innovation drivers, and being the bridge between science, industry, and real patients. That's at least my hope.
Sundar, before you go, you said the word, Elena, that's such a buzzword, platforms. And actually going back to the kind of more rare gene therapies and when we were talking about LNPs and everything, I mean, that was in those conversations, that is a huge goal for the future, is developing, platforms so you can have the LNPs that have all undergone regulation already, whatever the genome editing, CRISPR base editing, payload is all regulated already, and then just have to regulate that guide RNA. And if we're talking about, kind of a genome editing therapy, but whatever it is, having these platforms that are kind of half would be like pre-approved already. And so that's definitely a space that I think in my 5 to 10 year crystal ball, we might see. There seems to be so much momentum right now in that area, I guess, with the success of the baby KJ story and everything. So, all right, Sundar, we'll give you the last prediction, just a couple minutes left.
I would say we are at the golden age, where the coming together of the basic raw science and computing power coming together. So this is the best time to be in this space, right? So few things that I think practically that's going to happen are digital supply chain management, that from the raw material to the drug product, pen, device, whatever that may be, they are fully integrated. And the quality assurance right now, which is a separate entity, I would think it'll become integrated with bioprocessing, right? So decision making will become integrated. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to be in this space where we are, because it's a confluence of two independent things that are coming together. That the basic science, research, manufacturing technology in terms of robotics, and then computing power, all three coming together.
Yeah,
It's best time to be in this space.
Absolutely.
Can I just quickly add on these computers you were saying? I've been reading about quantum computers, which do in maybe a day or two calculations that would take 10,000 years because they're done on electrons. So I could imagine for personalized medicine, especially, or for any general, because even though a lot of the genes involved certain cancers are the same, you can't separate that from the environment, the patient's overall health. I could see maybe within 5, 10 years feeding all this information into one of these quantum AI computers, and rather than going through loads of research and network and everything, it can go all over the world. What the latest is going, instead of waiting weeks or months, minutes, days, or whatever, say, here's what might work. That's an extreme, but I mean, that's sort of, what do we call it? An asymptote? We're trying to reach that. I really think that's going to be amazing when they start, and probably already are, determining what the best way to go is. Very, again, what you were saying, like quickly.
Quickly. And
It's
cheap.
not only get it to the patient quicker, but it cuts the costs. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Read
All
my
right.
next book. Okay.
All right. Well, we'll check in 5 years. That brings us to the end of this session of Gen Live. This is a topic we love covering at Gen and where we cut our teeth 45 years ago. So we'll certainly continue to watch this space closely here at Gen. Thank you to my guests, Elena, Sundar, and John, for joining me. And I'm looking forward to more bioprocessing to come throughout the year. Thank you to our sponsors, Panom Biome and Niren Technologies. With that, I'm Juliana Lemire, and I'll see you back here next month on Gen Live.
Bye-bye.
Bye.